All right. So we are here, and I'm with James Joyce III, but I know you as JJ3. And I always prefer calling you JJ3.
Yep.
um, but and I just have to say, I'm just so proud of you. I just think you're amazing that you're running for mayor, which is no small feat and probably a pain in the ass sometimes, and really incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I only lived here in Santa Barbara for 6 years, but in that time, I got to meet you pretty early on when I moved here. And I met you, yeah, I met you pretty right when I got here, pretty much.
Yeah.
And you inspired me from the get-go because I saw how you had ideas. I remember meeting you through the context of starting a podcast that it didn't get off the ground the way you guys intended, but I do know that then you took your piece of something that you were passionate about, and instead of making it podcasts, you actually made it bigger in the community with Coffee
Right.
with a Black Guy, which I also thought was so cool because you could have sat in a dark room and just had your coffee and and talked to people, but you went into the community and you got out there with the people and said, "Let's all talk because this needs to happen." So
Yeah.
I just love that you chose that route. That you seem to be about sharing and connecting with the people.
Well, I mean, and that's the same thing with running for mayor, right? It's building community. I recognized that there was building community through Coffee with the Black Guy, and there's something powerful in that.
Yes. And so essential that we stay connected with people right on the street, know what's going on, do what we can in the community. Which actually leads me to something I asked River, my son who's now 8, who you met when he was around, gosh, 2
Too.
and some, yeah, 2. And I said, okay, I'm going to talk to James JG3 about things in Santa Barbara. He's running for mayor, and he's like, that's so cool. And I said, what would you want to know? And he cared most about what's happening with how we can support people who are homeless, because he sees that there's been more people on the streets that look like they need help. And that's something I want to ask you about. Like, what's your views on that? And how would you want to support people better?
That's a very complex issue because people end up
Yeah.
unhoused on the street for a variety of reasons, right? And there's no one stop shop that's going to fix that problem. And so my approach with that has always been the individualized approach. Looking at what the point in time homeless count indicates that there's under 1,000 unhoused folks in our community on any given day. And that number may fluctuate a little bit, but about 1,000, and that's in a community, a greater Santa Barbara community of about 200,000. That's an obtainable number to address, right? And so we can really address that on an individualized level, which means one point of contact, a caseworker who's consistent in folks' lives, and making sure that they're finding out what the success look like for that individual. For some folks it may just be, look, I need to shake this habit. And so, okay, we'll shake the habit, we'll work a plan to make that happen, and then we'll be there to support you if you don't make that, if you fall, and then we'll also be there to support you as you excel past that. And that's really just kind of like a neighborly approach. And there's other facets to that as well that I won't bore you with, but as I mentioned, it's a complex and layered system, and
Of
so
course.
it
Yeah.
it 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 it, it, it means addressing mental health issues as far as
Yes.
services. It means addressing transitional housing. Means
Mhm.
opening up units for some of the vouchers that are available in our communities.
Mhm.
And it also means tying in substance abuse, and I always point out, and my mental health professional friends applaud me on this, but substance abuse is classified as a mental health disorder. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And I see that too in
And
my.
go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say, in my work, I do integrative medicine and acupuncture, but I work with people a lot through addiction and also mental health issues, and I see a huge crossover, and quite often one is leading to the other.
Yeah,
So it's I see what you're saying firsthand,
yeah,
and as a small business owner in town, and as a single mom and someone who rents instead of owns, it's part of why I actually care about getting you in office is that I know you're looking out for these people, you know, not just people who've been here forever who have the big homes, but I know you walk well with everyone.
Right.
So but I want to say that because I know that you really get in there with many different communities, and you're creating great communication between different facets of the community. And that's what I'm not so sure would happen with some of these other people that are running. And I say that respectfully, but that's really my opinion as I researched more and heard a lot from people who've been here a long time. Anything you could say
Yeah,
about
no,
that?
yeah, I mean, it's really about creating an inclusive community, and you
Yeah.
can't do that if you're not aware of your blind spots, right? And you know, through the platform that I've created with Coffee with a Black Guy, the background and experience that I have as a trained professional journalist, as a newspaper reporter, and then transitioning over into a decade of public services as well. Like there's this certain um, dance that I've always done, right? And it's you know, you're sent to the crime scene to talk to the victim of the homicide or the vehicle accident, but then you're also speaking, you know, with the mayor and the senator that's coming to town and any celebrity that, I mean, and so you're in contact with a lot of the community. And there's a lot of wisdom that comes from that, and to not infuse that into the decision making process, to not infuse that into the community building process, I think it's a missed opportunity. And
Oh,
you know, as
yeah.
mayor of the city of Santa Barbara, it's really an opportunity to do that.
Absolutely. You know, and when I moved here, people told me that, you know, there's limits to how much can be built in this area. And which is I'm actually very aware of as more people move in and rent goes up and housing goes up and there's limits, right? I've thought about this a lot. I'm curious about just your ideas around development in Santa Barbara. And, you know, we're also dealing with the outdoor areas and whether or not they'll continue to exist or how they should best exist, not just State Street, but hopefully also the other areas, you know, around Milpas and other areas where there's been outdoor building. Yeah. So anything you could say about it? There's so much.
Yeah, I mean, we've got opportunities throughout town to develop in a smart way. You know, we have some development that's been going on that doesn't reach the maximum height that they're allowed. So that allows us a little bit more capacity. But I'm much more a fan of reusing current space. For
Yeah.
instance,
Yeah.
the former Nordstrom's building, right? I mean, the fact that
Yes.
Nordstrom's is gone, I hate that, right? Because you know, I used to, those are the long sleeve dress shirts that fit me, right? I got long
Yeah.
arms,
Yeah.
right? And so, you know, sad to see that go, but there's been an evolution in retail, and so look at that shell of a building and say, okay, so how could we reuse that space to be something that could be helpful, right? And so think about if we could, you know, had a first floor lobby level, had some multi use. So maybe a coffee shop and or you know, some trinket stores, maybe an art gallery or something down there on the first floor. Take the escalator up, and then you have suites or small condos that people
Mm-hmm.
can live in. They could be workforce housing. And when
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about that, like maybe a small kitchenette in those, but having
Mm-hmm.
a shared kitchen space for you
Mm-hmm.
know, communal type living. It's a different diversity. It's a different type of housing that's providing diversity in our housing stock. So not everybody's gonna seek out a you know, one bedroom apartment or a two bedroom apartment. That
Mm-hmm.
might be something that is more attractive to the workforce. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's just one example. I mean, we've got other examples. The Armory on the east side is an opportunity for workforce housing. You've got the Sears building up in La Cumbra
Right. Yeah.
Plaza. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of opportunities to do that. It's just about bringing all the interested parties or disinterested parties to the table,
Yeah.
and really talking through what a vision looks like and how can we get everybody on board to get to work towards that.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, when it comes to where we live too, there's natural resources is a big topic, right? You know, how we're working with the land or not, how we're working with electricity or not. And I know that you have some interesting ideas around solar paneling, and it came up at least recently in a conversation I was having with someone who's working with politics in town, and I think you know who I'm talking about. Anyway,
Indeed.
yeah. But I wanted to hear anything you might say about that, if you have any perspectives on what could be helpful, because we've had a lot of issues even with the electric companies and the grids and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah, not to get too deep in the weeds, but we're at the end of the line for Southern California Edison. So SCE ends at around the where the Aliso fire currently is, right around the Gaviota coast, and then from there north it goes to PG&E. And so being at the end of a line, it makes you a little bit more fragile than say if you were in the middle where there's more redundancies and things of that nature. And so I, I think particularly at the end of the line, we have an opportunity to say, okay, look, because we have this fragility, there needs to be some redundancies that we as a community can create. And what that can mean is that can be putting solar on the top of all of our city-owned parking lots, right? Making sure that those roofs are solar. That provides an additional layer of shade for cars because it gets hot out here these days with climate change. But also it provides an energy resource. And so, utilizing that to provide microgrids and looking at around particularly infrastructure that's owned by the city, and then move into other entities such as the school district on the roofs of schools and things of that nature, and start to build microgrids around that, not necessarily to replace the use of Southern California Edison, but to supplement that, right? And so it can definitely, lessen the load at the end of the line if we can supplement that here locally in the community. And the reality of it is, it's like 10 years ago, you asked me that question and I wouldn't have been able to answer that. But just being infused in the meetings and the briefings and, the readings of what's going on and the tracking of issues, like that's a lot of the knowledge that I just realized one day that I had all picked up and was useful. It's not cocktail party conversation. So I need to put that skill set to use.
Are you sure? Because that could be cocktail conversation.
Not necessarily a party I'd want to be at.
I hear you.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking of too is, you have been helping and supportive in politics here locally, like you said, for a long time. So, like you just mentioned, you've been behind the scenes. You know a lot of people. You know what it takes to make things work and have people truly work together or not. And I know there's big issues around whether or not people will work together and support each other once they're in office. So that said, I really believe you can make this difference. I really do, and we need it.
And it's also, thank you. I appreciate that. But it's also understanding the perspective that, like, the way that the city of Santa Barbara is run by the city charter. It's administrative heavy. Like the elected officials, they get to set the direction, the vision, and things like that. But it's carried out by staff. I've been a staffer. I've known that that's the way the city works, right? And I see the weight that the staff of the cities, the counties, and these different entities. I see the weight that the actual staff carry in that. And so I think understanding that and being able to relate on that staff to staff level, as I've worked with many of the folks, right, and throughout these departments over the years. And so I think that's an asset. To being able to set the direction and vision of knowing what's possible at the staff level to carry out some of those specific things.
Yeah, I mean, and being someone who is a staffer, and we're not talking about any kind of staffer like at a restaurant or a staffer in a store. We're talking about being a staffer in this particular role and in the needs that are how the city runs. That's very specific stuff that you understand. So that's really important to me. All right. I have to say, I keep taking pictures of your sign around town with, James Joyce for mayor. And I got a good one with flowers this morning. There you go. So I'm collecting them and hopefully I'll just keep putting them out in all the different ways.
Great. No, thank you. And I mean, realistically, I announced February 1st of this year. So for the past, 8 months, we've been just out talking to folks, knocking on doors, holding, gatherings virtually. Have been a lot of them, holding gatherings and really just trying to get the message out. And I've been, blessed to get the endorsement of the Santa Barbara Independent and the Montecito
Yes.
Journal. Check those endorsements out. They really lay out where our city should be and will be going under my leadership. And just make an informed decision, but thinking about the future, not necessarily where we are now, but what's the future look like, and what people can do to help at this point. Just amplify that message. This
Yeah.
video, other videos that are out there. We've had several, I think maybe 10 debates that are out there that folks can look, share, and engage with on a variety of topics. And so I think we have about 50% of the vote is still coming in, as we have all vote by mail. And so just, encouraging folks to make sure that you cast your vote. Don't let it sit in the house, and get it in by November 2nd, 8 p.m.
Yeah. And we have those boxes around town where people can be sliding them right in, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm seeing around town at least.
Yeah, no, there's several locations. There's 24-hour a day secured official drop block boxes. I'm looking at the sheet that I have right here because I held on to that because that's kind of what you do.
Yeah.
But just to be helpful. But knowing that there is one at City Hall, but there's also
Yes.
several other dispersed out throughout the city.
Yeah. And I want to just emphasize again, anybody who is on that fence and doesn't always care to vote, if you moved into town, you're like, well, I'm not sure because I haven't lived here very long. I don't know what we really need. Well, please do read these articles, understand the issues and what we're trying to address, and vote, because voting in that bracket and those constituents really matters. It'll make a big impact. So I'm so happy you're running, and I'm going to hope to be celebrating with you on November 2nd.
Indeed. Election night party, Ember Mill, 8 p.m. Ember Mill is a Caribbean fusion restaurant on State Street. It's been open for just before the pandemic, and so wanting to continue to support our small businesses and let folks know that there's some really good food out there, and that's the hook for me. The fried plantains.
I'm all about fried plantains. I love those. I'm going to be there. Thank you so much, James. Truly.
Indeed.
Okay,
Terra, thank you so much. And
yeah.
Please send my greetings to River. Hopefully I answered his question adequately.
I will run it by him and let you know. All right. I'm going to end the broadcast for now and just thank everyone.